Hello and welcome to this walkthrough video for my Edexcel Foundation Paper 3 practice paper. This paper has been created using the key topics revision list you can find on my website. If you'd like a link to this paper to try it first, you can find one in this video's description. For the first question here, we need to write down the value of the number 6 in this number. The number 6 is located in the tens column here. This means rather than representing 6, it represents 6 lots of 10. 6 lots of 10 is 60, so that's the answer to the question. For question 2, we need to find the value of 4 to the power 4. Now you may be able to type this straight into your calculator, or you can realise that 4 to the 4 means 4 times 4 times 4 times 4 again, so 4 times in total, and if you type that into your calculator you'll get the answer 256. For question 3, we need to write down a square number that's in between 30 and 50. You can get square numbers just by timesing any number by itself, so let's start with 1 times 1, which is 1. 2 times 2 gives you 4, 3 times 3 is 9, 4 times 4 is 16, 5 times 5, 25, 6 times 6 is 36, 7 times 7 is 49. And if we did 8 times 8, that would be too big. So we're looking for numbers here that are in between 30 and 50, so there's only two possibilities, either 36 or 49. So I'm going to choose 36, but 49 would also be correct. For question 4, we need to convert 3/4 to a percentage. I'd first of all turn it into a decimal. You could just type 3/4 as a fraction into your calculator and press the SD button and that will give it as a decimal, or you could do 3 divided by 4, which will give you 0.75. Now to turn a decimal into a percentage you multiply it by 100, so 0.75 times 100 is 75, so the answer is 75%. In this question we're told the probability that Kevin's going to pass a driving test is 0.4. We need to work out the probability that he does not pass the test though. When you work out the probability that something does not happen, you do 1 take away the probability that it does happen. So we just need to do 1 take away 0.4, which is 0.6, so that's your answer. For question 6, we've been given a formula, and we need to find the value of m when k is equal to 17. To do this, we're just going to copy out the formula again, but instead of k, we're going to write 17. So the formula says m equals, and then it's 5k, so 5 lots of k, but we know that k is 17, so 5 lots of 17, and then take away 6. So just type this into your calculator, 5 times 17 take away 6, and it gives you 79. In question 7, we've been given an equilateral triangle. This means all of the sides are the same length, and you can see that from the diagram, but also all of the angles are the same size. You should know the angles in a triangle always add up to 180 degrees. And since they're all the same size, we can just divide 180 by 3. If you divide 180 by 3, you get 60, which is the answer to this question. In this question, we have 72 teachers at a school, but we're told that 2/3 of them are going to go to the prom, so we need to find 2/3 of 72. To do this, we're going to do 72 divided by 3. This gives you 24. Now that's 1/3, but we want 2/3, so we're just going to multiply this by 2. 24 times 2 is 48. So 2/3 of 72 is 48. But what about the students? Well, we're told there are 240 students in year 11, and we want 9/10 of those since that's how many are going to go to the prom. So we do 9/10 of 240. Let's find 1/10 first by dividing it by 10. So 240 divided by 10 is 24. And since that's 1/10 and we want 9/10, we multiply this by 9. So 24 multiplied by 9 gives you 216. So we've got 48 teachers and 216 students, so the total number of people attending the prom will just be the sum of those. So if we add those up, we get the answer, 264. In this question, we have a number machine, and for the first part, we need to find the output if the input is 11. So we're going to input 11 into the machine, then we add 7 to it, and then divide it by 4. So let's start by doing 11 add 7, which gives you 18. And then we need to divide this by 4, so 18 divided by 4, and remember you can use your calculator for this, that gives you 4.5. So the answer to part A is 4.5. Now part B is a little more difficult. We're asked to find the input if the output is 1, so we're actually going to go backwards through the number machine. If you start at the output and go backwards through the number machine, the first thing you'll get to is this divide by 4. Now we need to do the inverse of that, which is actually multiply by 4. And then we head across to this plus 7, but again we need to do the inverse of this, which is minus 7. So we're going to start with our output, which is 1, and multiply this by 4, which is obviously 4, and then we take that 4 and subtract 7 from it. 4 take away 7 gives you -3. And again, you can use your calculator for any parts of this question if it's going to help you. So the answer to this one is -3. In the first part of this question, we need to write a ratio. It's the number of goals that Lucy scored to the number of goals that Ella scored. Looking at this bar chart, I can see that Lucy scored 12 goals, and I can also see that Ella scored 9 goals. So the ratio is going to be 12 to 9. But we need to give this in simplest form since it asks that in the question, so we can divide both of these by 3. 12 divided by 3 gives you 4, and 9 divided by 3 gives you 3. So the fully simplified one is 4 to 3. For the second part of the question, we need to complete a pictogram. Now you can see we've already had the part for Beth completed for us. We can see there's 2.5 circles. But if we look at the bar chart, we know that Beth scored 10 goals. So 2.5 circles must represent 10 goals. We can use this to help us work out what the key needs to be. So one circle must be 4 goals. So we have 4, and then another 4, and then this half a circle would be 2, since 2 is half of 4. And you can see this adds up to 10. 4 and 4 and 2 makes 10. So the key must be that one of the circles represents 4 goals. We can now use this key to complete the pictogram for Lucy and Ella. So if you look at the bar chart, you can see that Lucy scored 12 goals. So one circle will be 4, a second circle will be another 4, so that's 8, and then if we take one more circle, that's another 4 again, so that's 12. 4, 8, 12. Then we move on to Ella. So Ella scored 9 goals. So if we take one circle, that's 4, a second circle, that's 8, but we only need one more goal. Now since one of the circles represents 4 goals, a quarter of it will represent 1 goal. So we just need a quarter more, and there's your extra goal, and you can now see that Ella has 9 goals. In this question, we need to complete a two-way table. We're told immediately in the question that there are 60 students. This means we can put a 60 in the bottom right corner for the total. Then we're told that 1/3 of the students are in year 8 and the rest are in year 9. So let's work out 1/3 of the students by doing 1/3 of 60. To do this, you can divide 60 by 3, which gives you 20. So 20 of those students must be in year 8. Let's put that into the table. Now if you look at this column here, you can see we're just missing the number of year 9s, but we know there are 20 year 8s and 60 students in total, so if we do 60 take away 20, we get 40, which is how many year 9s there must be. So we can also add this into the table. Now let's move on to the next bit of information. We've got 5 students who received a gold certificate, and one of those was in year 8. So we can put the total for gold as 5, and one of those was in year 8. Then we've got a similar statement for silver certificates. So we've got 26 students receiving a silver one, and 15 of those were in year 9. So let's put 26 in silver, but 15 of those were in year 9. Now we've finished with all of the information, we need to fill in the rest of this table. So we're first of all going to look at the column for gold here. You can see one of those students was in year 8, we don't know how many were in year 9, but we know the total is 5. So if we do 5 take away 1, we get 4, which means 4 of those students were in year 9. Then we'll do a similar thing for silver. We don't know how many year 8s there were, but we know there were 15 year 9s, and the total is 26. So 26 take away 15 gives you 11 year 8s. Next we're going to look horizontally at the year 8 students. You can see one of them received gold, 11 received silver, we don't know how many received bronze, but we know there are 20 in total. So if we take away 11 and 1 from that 20, we must find out how many got a bronze. So if we do 20, take away 1, take away 11, this gives you 8. So 8 of the year 8s received a bronze. We can do a similar approach with year 9 here, so if we do 40, take away 4, take away 15, we find that 21 year 9s received a bronze, and we can also do a similar approach with the total. So if we do 60, take away 5, take away 26, this gives you 29 bronze students in total. Or alternatively, you could have just added up the 8 bronze and the 21 bronze to get 29 as your total. We've now completed the two-way table, so let's go to the next question. In this question, we've got Tracy who's booking a flight, and you can see there are 3 different types of ticket. We could go first class, business class, or economy class, and we also need to choose our seat location, which is by the window or by the aisle. So we need to list all of the possible combinations. So let's start with the first one from each category, first class and a window seat. Now let's change the window seat to an aisle seat, so it could be first class with an aisle seat instead. Now that's all the possibilities that involve first class, so let's move on to business class. So we've got business class by the window, we could also have business class by the aisle. And finally, we can move on to economy class. We've got economy class with a window and economy class with the aisle. And that's all of your combinations. In this question, we need to find the median mass of the goats. The median is the number that's in the middle. And good news, the stem and leaf diagram has already put the numbers in order for us. So we just need to cross off the greatest and least value over and over again until we arrive at the middle one. So let's cross off the smallest one, that's 18, and then 51 is the largest one. and then we go the next smallest, 24, along with 50. And then we just continue to cross off numbers in pairs like this, using the smallest and the largest each time, until we end up with the middle number. And you can see that's this 1 here. But you need to remember the key for this question, so 1 with a line, then an 8 represents 18. So this 3 followed by a 1 actually represents 31 kilograms. For the second part of the question, we're asked to find the range. The range is the biggest number take away the smallest number. So we just need the biggest mass and the smallest mass. The biggest mass you can see here is this 1, which is 51, and the smallest one is this 8 here, which is 18. So we just do 51 take away 18, which is 33. In this question we have some exchange rates, and we've been asked to convert Betty's $200 into euros. Let's look at each of the exchange rates. So first of all, we've got £1 equaling 1.17 euros. This means to go from pounds to euros, you're going to multiply by 1.17. But if you want to go from euros back to pounds, you would divide by 1.17. Then we've got the second one, which is £1 is the same as $1.26. And in a similar way, to get from pounds to dollars, we multiply by 1.26, and to get from dollars back to pounds, we divide by 1.26. So, Betty has $200, and we need to get it to euros. So what we're going to do is use the right one of these exchange rates to turn those dollars into pounds first. So to get from dollars to pounds, we're going to divide by 1.26. So we take those $200, divide by 1.26, and that gives you £158.73. So we've now converted her money into pounds. We then need to turn the pounds into euros. So that uses this part of the exchange rate here. To go from pounds to euros, you multiply by 1.17. So let's take this £158.73, multiply it by 1.17, and that gives you €185.71. And that's your answer to the question. For this question, we need to complete a table of values. You can see in the table we've been given all of the x values, but we haven't been given all of the y values, so they're the ones we need to work out. And we can use this equation of a line above to help us with that. So the line says y equals 1 minus 3x. That means to work out y, we need to do 1 take away 3 lots of whatever x is. So let's start with x equals negative 2, the first one. We're going to do y equals 1 take away 3 lots of negative 2, since that's what x was. You can type this straight into your calculator, but make sure you put those brackets where that negative is, and you'll end up with 7. So when x equals negative 2, y gives you 7. Then we can repeat this, but with negative 1, so we're going to do 1 take away 3 lots of negative 1, which gives you 4. Then they've already done 0 for us, so we can move on to 1, so 1 take away 3 lots of 1, which gives you negative 2. And finally, 1 take away 3 lots of 2 gives you negative 5. So we've completed the table. We now need to use this table to draw the graph. To do this, you're going to look at each pair of x and y coordinates. So the first one here, negative 2 with 7. This means we need to plot a point at negative 2, 7. So that would go here. Then we've got negative 1, 4, and that goes here. Then we've got 0, 1, that goes here. Then 1, negative 2, that's here. 2, negative 5 is here. And 3, negative 8 goes here. Once you've drawn all of those, if you've plotted them correctly, they'll form a straight line. So we join this up with a straight line using your ruler, and this is your answer to the question. In this question, we need to work out the exterior angle of a regular octagon, and we've been given this formula to help us here, where n is going to represent the number of sides that it has. So an octagon has 8 sides, so we just need to do 360 divided by 8. So you can type this into your calculator, and it will give you the answer 45, which is the answer to the question. In the second part of this question, we're given some information. We're told the exterior angles of a regular polygon that has 10 sides are all 36 degrees. And then we have Alistair, who wants to work out the exterior angle for a different regular polygon, and this one's got 20 sides. Alistair's approach to this is doing 2 times 36, which gives you 72. So since the number of sides has doubled from 10 to 20, he thinks you can double the angle from 36 to 72. But does this work? Well, let's actually use the formula we were given in the question. A 20-sided shape will have the exterior angle 360 divided by 20, which gives you 18 degrees, so not the 72 that Alistair got. So actually, if you double the number of sides, you need to half the angle. You'll see if you do 36 divided by 2, you get 18. So for this question, we can say that Alistair is wrong. We can say he should have halved the exterior angle for a shape with 10 sides. In this question, we've been asked to write a ratio. It's the ratio of the number of students who said yes to the number of students who said no. So looking at the pie chart, you can see the section for yes here, and that's 160 degrees. It will be helpful to work out the angle for the side that said no. We should know that angles around a point add to 360, so if we do 360 take away the 160, we can find this red angle here, which is 200. So we can add that onto our pie chart. Now, whilst we aren't given information about the number of students in the pie chart, we can still find the ratio by using the ratio of the angles instead. So this is the ratio of the students who said yes to who said no, so let's use the angle for yes, and put that as a ratio to the angle for no. The question asks us to give these in its simplest form, so if you divide both of these by 40, 160 divided by 40 gives you 4, and 200 divided by 40 gives you 5. So the simplest form answer to this is 4 to 5. In the second part of the question, we're told there are 120 students in Year 11, and the head teacher says that the pie chart shows that not every student must have answered the survey, and we need to explain why the head teacher is correct. Now, a pie chart has 360 degrees in total, and if there are 120 students in Year 11, if we share out those 360 degrees amongst those 120 students, we find that each student will be given 3 degrees. So every student in the pie chart is represented by 3 degrees. Now, our section for yes has 160 degrees, so if we do 160 divided by 3, we end up with 53.3 recurring. This would suggest that the number of students that said yes was 53.3 recurring. Now obviously you can't have that many students, the number of students needs to be a whole number. So since 53.3 recurring is not a whole number, we can be sure that not all of the students answered this survey. For the first part of this question, we need to do a rotation. If you're not already given tracing paper in your exam, put your hand up and ask for some at this point. So we'll take some tracing paper and trace over the shape. It's asked us to rotate this 90 degrees clockwise about the origin, so we need to mark a point at the origin, and this is where you place your pencil. So place your pencil at this cross, and we're going to turn it 90 degrees clockwise, which is 1/4 of a turn the way a clock goes, so something like this. This is where your final shape would go, so you can take your tracing paper off and draw your shape here on the diagram. The question asks us to label this triangle A, so let's put an A on it. For the second part of the question, we've been asked to translate this triangle, which just means to move it, and we've been given a vector. This vector tells you to move the triangle 2 to the left, since the top number always tells you to move left or right, and it also says to move 1 down, since the bottom number is for up and down. So let's take the triangle T, and we're going to move it 2 left, so 1 left, 2 left, and then also 1 down, so 1 down. And this is where it goes, and you can label that one B. In this question, we've been given some information about the ages of Millie and Lydia. They're in the ratio 2 to 3, so let's write down Millie's age to Lydia's age is in the ratio 2 to 3. Then we're told that Millie is 30 years old, so we can write a 30 underneath Millie's column. So now we need to work out how we get from 2 to 30. To get from 2 to 30, you must multiply by 15. You can check that by doing 30 divided by 2, which will give you 15. Now if we're going to multiply 15 on the left hand side, we also need to do that on the right hand side, so 3 times 15 is 45. And this gives you Lydia's age, which we're asked to find in the question, of 45. In the first part of this question, we're asked to find the area of a parallelogram. The parallelogram in the question is this shape here. We're told earlier in the question that the square has a side length of 10 centimeters. This means this length here is 10, and also this length here is 10. Now notice also the length from A to B all the way across the top of this rectangle is 24 centimeters. So if we move this 10 up a little bit and draw in this line here, you can see that that line in the middle must add to 10 and 10 to give us 24. 10 and 10 makes 20, so there's 4 left, so this line here must be 4 centimeters. Now that line's helpful because it's the height of our parallelogram. We also need the base of the parallelogram. Well, remember earlier we said the length of the square was 10, so also this is 10, and this is 10. So the base of the parallelogram is 10. To find the area of any parallelogram, you just multiply its base by its perpendicular height, so we just do 10 times 4, which is 40. For the second part of the question, we need to find the area of one of the trapeziums. So the trapeziums are these shapes here, but we only need one of them. So let's try and find some of the lengths for this. Well, let's start with the square again. We know the side length for the square is 10, so this part here must be 10. We also found out in the previous question the height of that parallelogram here was 4, so we can see the base of this trapezium all the way across here must be 10 plus 4, which is 14. Now all we need to do is find the height of this trapezium. So the length of this line here is 10, again it's the side length of the square, and if you look on the left hand side from A to D is 13 centimeters. This means the missing height on the right hand side must be 3 centimeters, since 10 add 3 makes 13. So we've now got all the information we need to find the area of the trapezium. To find the area of a trapezium we start with 1/2, then we multiply this by the sum of the parallel sides. The ones that are parallel for this trapezium are the top and bottom ones, so 14 and 10, and then we multiply this by the height, which is 3. You can type this straight into your calculator as it is here, and that will give you the answer 36. In this question we need to convert 8.9 times 10 to the power negative 3 to an ordinary number. When we multiply something by 10 to the power negative 3, that's like dividing it by 10 3 times. So let's take 8.9, divide it by 10 once, that's 0.89, divide it by 10 again, that's 0.089, and one more time, 0.0089, and that's your answer to the question. For the second part of the question, we've got to work out something that looks relatively complicated, but you can just type that straight into your calculator as you see it there. When you press equals, it'll probably give you this number here, but we've been asked to give our answer in standard form. To write a number in standard form, you first of all need to work out what the number is that's between 1 and 10. So for this number, I can see we have a 3 and a 2 at the start, so I'm going to need to start with 3.2. Then I multiply this by a power of 10. To work out what this power of 10 will be, I'll put a decimal point in the correct place, 3.2, and then just keep multiplying this number by 10 until I get back to that original number. So times it by 10 once, twice, 3 times, 4 times, 5 times, 6 times. So this number must be 3.2 times 10 to the power 6. For the first part of this question, I need to expand and simplify some double brackets. To do this, you need to multiply everything in the first bracket by everything in the second bracket. So let's start by multiplying x times x, which gives you x squared. Then we can move on to x times negative 7, which is negative 7x. Then a positive 7 times x, which is plus 7x. And then finally plus 7 times negative 7, which is negative 49. Now we can also simplify the two terms in the middle here. Negative 7x plus 7x actually gives you 0, so those terms will cancel out. And we're just left with x squared minus 49. In the second part of this question, we've been asked to factorise. To factorise something like this, we look at the final term here, 36. What we need to do is think of all of the factor pairs for 36. So we've got 1 times 36, 2 times 18, 3 times 12, 4 times 9, and 6 times 6. All of those multiply to give you 36. Then we look at this middle term here, positive 13, and we're looking for the pair here that adds to give 13. So 1 plus 36 gives you 37, that's not 13. 2 plus 18 gives you 20, that's not 13. 3 plus 12 is 15, still not 13. But 4 plus 9 does give you 13. This tells us the numbers we need inside our brackets are 4 and 9. So the answer to this one is x plus 4, x plus 9. For this question, we need to find the highest common factor of 63 and 105. To do this, I'm going to write them both as a product of their prime factors. You can either do this by writing out a factor tree, or you can use your calculator. If you press 63 and then press equals, your calculator will show you 63 on the screen. If you then press shift, which is in the top left, and then the button fact, your calculator will display 3 squared times 7. This means 63 equals 3 squared times 7. If you do the same thing with 105, so 105 equals, then press shift fact, you get 105 is equal to 3 times 5 times 7. Now I'm going to rewrite that 3 squared as 3 times 3, so we end up with these two here. Next we're going to draw a Venn diagram. The left circle will be for 63 and the right one for 105. We're going to look for numbers in the 63 and the 105's prime factorization that match. So you can see they've both got a 3 here, so if we cross off that 3 and put a 3 in the middle. They also both have a 7, so we cross that out and put it in the middle. And then we're left with this 3 and this 5 that don't match, so we just need to put the 3 in the 63 circle and the 5 in the 105 circle. Now to find the highest common factor, you just multiply the numbers that are in the overlapping section in the middle here. 3 times 7 gives you 21, and that's your answer to the question. For the second part of the question, we need to find the lowest common multiple of 48 and 80. We're going to start in the same way we did for the previous part, by prime factorising these numbers. So if you use your calculator to prime factorize them, you get 40 equals 2 to the power 4 times 3, and also 80 equals 2 to the power 4 times 5. I'm going to convert both of these 2 to the power 4s into 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 again. And then we move on to this Venn diagram again. So all of these 2's actually match, so we can write those in the middle. And then we're left with a 3 for the 48 circle and a 5 for the 80 circle. Now the lowest common multiple is different to the highest common factor. This time you want to multiply all of the numbers that are inside this Venn diagram. So we've got that 3, and then we're going to times that by 2 times 2 times 2 times 2, and then times this by 5. You can type all of this into your calculator and it gives you the answer 240. In the first part of this question, we need to write down the modal class. The modal class is the class that has the highest frequency. So looking at this frequency table, I can see the highest frequency is 21, so we just need to write the class that that corresponds to, which is this one here. So the answer is 0 less than p less than or equal to 10. For the second part, we need to find the interval that contains the median price. In the question, we were told there are 55 ties for sale in the shop. To find the median, you take the number of ties we have, which is 55, and add 1. This gives you 56. If you then half this, 56 divided by 2, you get 28. This tells you the middle price will be the 28th one. So we look down the prices until we hit the frequency total of 28. So starting with this first group here, we've got 21, so that's not 28. Then if we add in the next group, that's 8 more, that gives us 29. So we've now gone past the 28th tie, so the 28th tie must be in this group. So the answer to the interval that contains the median is this interval here, so we just write our answer as 10 is less than p is less than or equal to 20. For the first part of this question, we need to write down the coordinates of the turning point of the graph. The turning point is this point right here at the bottom of the graph. So the coordinates for that are the x-coordinate -1 and the y-coordinate -3. For the second part of the question, we need to find the estimates to the roots of this equation. To find the roots, you're looking for the points that this graph crosses over the x-axis. So you can see there are 2 of those, this one here and this one here. So we just need to read off those x values. Now I get that as x equals -2.7 and x equals 0.7. In this question, we've been told that AB is going to be increased by 12%. If you increase something by 12%, you add 12% to it. So think of the amount as being 100%. If you add 12% to 100%, you get 112%. Now we can turn 112% into a decimal multiplier by dividing it by 100. So 112 divided by 100 is 1.12. This means if you want to increase any number by 12%, you can multiply it by 1.12. So since we want to increase the length of AB by this, we take AB, which is 320, and multiply it by 1.12. Type that into your calculator and it'll give you the answer 358.4. Now let's move on to BC. BC is decreased by 25%. So think of the whole amount again, 100%, but this time take off 25%. That gives you 75%. So again, we want to turn this into a multiplier. To do this, we divide it by 100, which gives you 0.75. So to reduce any number by 25%, you multiply it by 0.75. So we want to do BC, which is 180, times 0.75, which is 135. So we've now found the new length for AB is 358.4 and the new length for BC is 135. We've been asked to find the area of this rectangle, so we just multiply those together. 358.4 times 135, which gives you the answer 48384. In this question, we need to do some trigonometry. We've been asked to work out the length of AB. Since this is a right-angled triangle, we can label the sides in the following way. The hypotenuse is the side that's opposite the right angle, that's this one up here. The opposite is the one that's opposite the angle given in the question, so opposite the 77 is this one here. And the final one is the one that's next to the angle, which is the adjacent here. Now since we've been asked to find the length of AB, which is the adjacent marked on our diagram, and we've been given AC, which is the opposite, we don't need the hypotenuse at all, so we can remove that from the question. Now when you write out SOHCAHTOA, only one of those has O and A in it, and that's the last one, TOA. This tells us we need to use tan. So we write out tan of the angle, which is 77, equals the opposite, which is 15, divided by the adjacent, which is what we're trying to find, so we can just call that A. Now, since the missing value is on the bottom of this fraction, we're going to need to divide to get the answer rather than multiply. So we can write a equals 15 divided by tan 77, and if you type this into your calculator and round it to one decimal place like it's asked, you end up with this answer here, 3.5. In this question, we need to work out the length of the arc ABC. To find the length of an arc, you use the formula theta, which is the angle, over 360, times by pi, times by diameter. So we just need to work out what the angle theta is and what the diameter is. Now the angle is the angle of the sector, which we haven't actually been given. It's this angle here. But you should know that the angles around a point add up to 360, and we've been given the right angle for the other bit here, which is 90. So if you do 360 take away 90, you find out that this red angle is 270. We also need to know the diameter. Now the radius has been given in the question. From O to C there, you can see that's 6 centimeters. So the diameter will be double this, so double 6, which is 12. You can now just type this straight into your calculator, and you get this as your answer, rounded to one decimal place, like it asks in the question. For this question, we need to convert 9 meters squared into centimeters squared. Now this is a question a lot of people get wrong. You probably know that 1 meter is equal to 100 centimeters, so some people just think you need to multiply 9 by 100 and you'll get the answer, but that's not true, because this one is not going from meters to centimeters, it's going from meters squared to centimeters squared. 1 meter squared would look like a square like this, which is 1 meter by 1 meter, which is the same as 100 centimeters by 100 centimeters. So if we were to find the area of this in centimeters squared, you need to do 100 multiplied by 100. 100 times 100 is 10,000. So 1 square meter is actually the same as 10,000 centimeters squared. This means if we're going to convert 9 meters squared into centimeters squared, we need to do 9 times 10,000, which actually gives you 9 meters squared is the same as 90,000 centimeters squared. And that's your answer to the question. In this question, we need to make x the subject of this formula. That means we want x on its own. So at the moment, y is the subject because you can see y is on its own on the left-hand side. So let's write out the formula. The first thing we're going to do is subtract c from both sides. If you subtract c from the left-hand side, you do y take away c, which you can just write as y take away c. But if you subtract c from the right-hand side, that'll cancel that plus c that's already there. So you're just left with mx. Next, we need to tackle the m. mx means m times x, so we're going to divide by m to eliminate it. So if you divide by m on both sides, if you do this on the left-hand side, you've got y minus c already, but then you divide this by m. We would write that as over m. Then on the right-hand side, this will cancel the m, leaving us just with x. You can now see x as the subject because it's on its own, and we normally write this the other way around with the subject on the left-hand side. So you would probably write your answer as x equals y minus c over m. Thank you for watching this video, I hope you found it useful. Here are some suggested grade boundaries, but remember we don't know the real grade boundaries until after the papers have been done. Check out the video I think you should watch next, and subscribe so you don't miss out on future videos.